Joseph and Sidney, brother and sister, met in a small diner. Some time ago, they committed a robbery together, during which they got $6 million. The man brought the money in a big bag. They briefly discuss a plan of action for the near future. Sidney needs the money to pay off her debts and provide for her daughter. She wants to make up for her mistakes because she regrets not being there for her daughter the way she should have been. First of all, the brother and sister have to hide so that no one finds them. Joseph tells them that he knows a place, but at that moment a police siren sounds outside the window and they run away. In the forest, they change their clothes and throw their old clothes into the swamp. Joseph says that his friend let them hide in her house, which everyone had long forgotten about. Soon they come to a cornfield and hear gunshots. They cautiously sneak to the right place. To their surprise, a car is parked in front of the house, and 3 boys are having fun shooting at empty bottles with guns. Sidney notices the bullies, but her gun doesn't scare them. However, when Joseph comes out the other side, the bullies run away. His brother tells them to hurry. They enter a house that is unoccupied. Joseph immediately notices a large clock, and then he and his sister look around the house, noting the mess and neglect. At this point, they hear police sirens again. Sidney suggests running, but Joseph points to the pantry door and declares that this is exactly what they were looking for. He then runs over to the clock on the first floor and starts turning the hands in a certain order. Sidney does the same with the other clocks. When the clocks start to chime, the siblings enter the pantry and close the door behind them. Thunder and lightning roar over the house. Joseph opens a notebook and orders his sister to dial a number on an antique telephone inside the room, then hang up as soon as she says the right words. Outside, they hear the voices of police officers searching for them. Sidney dials the number and says a few words, then immediately hangs up. Darkness and silence ensue. After a while, Joseph opens the door and they go outside. There is not a soul around. Everything is tidy and cozy. All things are put in their places, and the clock has stopped. Joseph, following the instructions, turns on the clock in the living room. Sidney can't believe that they have succeeded and are now safe. Joseph reminds them that they need to stay here for at least 14 days, which doesn't seem difficult. The fridge is full of food and alcohol, and there are a bunch of CDs on the table to help them have fun. On the first day, they just relax. Joseph goes for a walk and looks around the grounds, while Sidney takes a bath and tries on an old dress hanging in the closet. On the second day, they cook dinner and spend time on the porch talking. In the afternoon, they count the money they stole, planning where and what they will spend it on. Sidney misses his daughter and looks at her photo, but consoles himself with the fact that soon it will all be over and they will live a carefree life. The brother and sister look at the portraits hanging around the house and practice shooting. Both are masters of this craft, as they have rifles with scopes. 13 days go by like this. In the evening, Sidney explains to his brother the value of some of the things kept in this strange house. For example, a bullhook is not cheap, but modern people simply do not know what it is for. Suddenly, the conversation turns to the topic of family relationships. Joseph thinks he didn't give his sister enough love, and now he's suffering because of it. But Sidney thinks that she is doing well because she has a daughter. Nevertheless, his brother promises to do his best to fix it and pay more attention to her. Sidney asks about his friend who provided them with this shelter, but Joseph cannot explain who she is or how her house works. He admits that the woman gave him her notebook out of pity. Suddenly, Sidney remembers her parents. She remembers her mother, and Joseph remembers his father. Together, they remember how their mother used to play the piano. But the best part is that Sidney remembers a song that was playing on a CD in the stereo. Although she doesn't know its name, the woman starts humming the old tune and suddenly asks her brother to bring it back to her daughter. Finally, the time comes when they can go home. Sidney tidies up while Joseph gathers their bags and burns the rest of the trash. When they come to the closet door, they find it boarded up. An inscription is carved on a wooden board. "Go to the old mill next door." The woman becomes hysterical and starts running to the mill. Her brother catches up with her and tries to calm her down. They begin to explore the premises, and in the basement they find church pews. Soon, in the light of a flashlight, they discover a decomposed body. Words are carved on the pedestal, in a time loop, and a request is written to leave signatures under this message if they understand the meaning and are ready to fulfill the requirements. Sidney refuses to do so and runs away. She tries to get out of the house, but suddenly she feels sick and realizes that she cannot go outside the circle. Her brother pulls her to safety. Sidney regains consciousness, but cannot believe that what is happening is real. She despairs and cries, remembering her daughter. Joseph explains that the body in the mill belongs to the same friend who allowed them to hide there. He recognized her by her watch, a family heirloom. They try to figure out if anyone can find them, but their trail is so confusing that there is no hope for help. Joseph has no choice but to sign the warning. After that, a safe instantly appears in front of them. Remembering the notebook, the man opens it, checking the numbers written in it. Inside, he finds a tape recorder and an inscription. Say the right words and close the door to establish a connection. Joseph complies, and a minute later, after turning on the tape recorder, he hears an unfamiliar voice. The stranger tells him that they should not be on the farm. He knows about the money, but then the tape recorder suddenly stops. Joseph assumes that they are talking to the future. Sidney repeats his actions, opening and closing the safe, and the voice appears again. Now he declares that he intends to erase all traces of their existence in order to preserve the delicate balance of this place. But Joseph realizes that the strangers need something from them, otherwise they would have destroyed them long ago. Finally, the voice informs him that the only way to stay alive is to stay on the farm and eliminate the mysterious visitor who will arrive at an unspecified point in the future. The brother and sister must destroy his remains, and then the unknowns will help them get out of here. The brother and sister return to the house. Sidney checks the cupboards and the refrigerator. They are again filled with food and alcohol. She plans to arrange herself so that she can always control the approach to the house and not miss the stranger's arrival. Sidney is convinced that if they are stuck here, their lives are over, but she is willing to try to get out. Joseph suggests that they set up shifts and divide up the duties, and Sidney pours out the alcohol. The pair places their weapons in hiding places in the house, the yard, and the mill. While Joseph keeps watch, Sidney searches the house, studying the old portraits and photographs on the walls. Then they switch places, and now Sidney is exploring the neighborhood. Almost a year passes like this. The brother and sister do not lack for anything. The refrigerator consistently provides them with food. They can take care of themselves and live in comfort. Sidney continues to explore the house, reading old newspapers, magazines, and documents. She watches tapes of TV programs and practices with a bullhook. In the evening, she makes a fire and one day tells her brother that she found a box of photographs at the mill. This helped her realize that the people depicted in them were not the first owners of the farm. The history of the place reflects the events before the Korean War in 1955, and then there is no evidence that anyone lived there after that. The naval officer pictured in one of the photographs in the hall died around the same time, probably after falling down the stairs. She believes that it was around this time that those who took over the place with their technology appeared. They equipped the house, installed electricity, heating, and even television. For some reason, they used this space in time, and when the brother and sister made their way here, they got stuck in a time loop. Still, this doesn't answer their questions. Joseph is annoyed, trying to make his sister believe that all this happened because of him. He is even ready to blame his parents, and believes that those who have arranged all this do not care about them at all. They do everything just because they can. There are no uninvited guests here, and therefore they will never return home. All they can do is die slowly. A quarrel breaks out between the siblings because Joseph is sure that Sidney doesn't believe him and thinks that he is preparing to leave her here. Soon he pulls himself together and they make up. They go downstairs to the lobby, and while the girl watches TV, Joseph looks at their identical tattoos, which remind him that they are family. Their wait continues. Joseph tries to contact the strangers again, but the tape recorder no longer works. He begs for a sign because he is tired of the uncertainty, but no one is resting. One day, a mysterious visitor shows up at the farm. He looks at Sidney through binoculars and then goes into the house and prepares to shoot the woman. Joseph notices it and warns his sister with a loud shout. The bullet flies by. Then the hooded stranger opens fire on Joseph, but he also manages to enter the house and hide. The brother and sister begin hunting for the visitor, but so far they have not been able to find him. Joseph walks around the perimeter of the house and decides to get to the weapon hidden in the field. The stranger shoots him, and the man returns to the house, where he is caught up by the same hooded man. Later, Sidney hears music coming from the field and sees a man with a tape recorder playing their mother's song, with Joseph at his feet. The woman goes out into the field, and an argument begins between them, during which Sidney is injured. She hides in the house, bandages her wound, and discovers that the closet is locked again. In anger, she tries to break the door, but a warning appears on the board warning her not to do so. At the same moment, a safe appears in the room. At this time, Joseph, with his feet tied, regains consciousness in the church. Sidney opens the safe and reestablishes contact with the unknown. She declares that she intends to take her brother and leave here at any cost, but is told that if she breaks the door, she and her brother will die in this place. At this point, the visitor notices that Joseph has regained consciousness and is trying to reach for a gun, but is unable to do so. A voice from the tape recorder tells Sidney that they can't take any chances because the stranger might break out of the circle. The woman talks about the music her mother used to play, but she is assured that the visitor is not her mother. Meanwhile, the visitor, who for some reason cannot speak, writes a note to Joseph ordering him to contact the strangers and confirm that they have complied with the demands and killed the stranger. Meanwhile, Sidney is persuaded to tell him everything she knows about the visitor, and then they will tell him why they are sure it is not her mother. The call is suddenly cut off. At this time, a stranger in the church hands Joseph a tape recorder to confirm the guest's death. The man says he left the body outside and reports that he is wounded. If they can contact Sidney, they should let her know, and then the two of them can provide them with the body. The girl is given this information and goes to help her brother. Meanwhile, the visitor, communicating in writing, informs Joseph that he is looking for the person who sent his family to the other side. At this point, Sidney accidentally makes a noise outside, and the stranger runs outside. A shootout ensues, and this time it is the secret guest who escapes. Joseph reaches for his gun and frees himself, while Sidney catches up with the stranger in the house. They fight, the woman wounds him, knocks him down, and tries to rip the mask off his face. She barely manages to do so, and under the mask, she recognizes her adult daughter. While she is trying to realize this fact, Joseph breaks into the house and shoots the secret guest. Sidney tries to protect daughter, and a bullet hits her. While her brother mourns his dying sister, girl escapes through the barn. Joseph, left alone, tells the stranger through a tape recorder that the visitor is gone. He says goodbye to Sidney and, following the instructions, waits at the mill. Soon, Joseph finds himself in an unknown place where he meets the stranger from the tape recorder and a woman. They demand that Joseph provide information about the visitor, but he is unable to do so because he does not know that it was actually Sidney's daughter. He is informed that he and his sister have violated the instructions, and now all traces of their existence will be erased. The strangers apologize because they had pinned their hopes on them and let down those to whom they were responsible. Joseph begs them to give him one last chance to save Sidney and make amends. The strangers agree, and Joseph finds himself in the first day of the beginning of their story. They meet again in a cafe where it turns out that Joseph has repeatedly experienced this cycle of events because he could not prevent Sidney's accidental death. He tells her that the only way to stop the cycle is to kill him right now, take the money, and return to his daughter. Sidney shoots his brother and flees the restaurant as police sirens approach. What is going on? Why was her daughter there at all? Why was she with a boombox?